All right, so that is matters ecotourism. But even when you talk about tourism, it's quite an interesting fact that a city like Paris by itself, just one city, gets more tourists like more than Africa as a continent combined, which is quite concerning. That's why we should have discussions on how to, boost capacity in Africa in many areas. And right now I'm joined by Alan Asimwe, who is the Chief Technical Officer from Trademark East Africa, to discuss how we can, boost investment in Africa as a continent. Right now, Alan, the concern is that even trading within ourselves is quite low compared to other regions. We stand at 15%, intra-Africa trade. What can we do to change this narrative?
Thank you so much, Noah, and good afternoon, everyone. You raise a very pertinent question. Why aren't we trading? Traditionally, our states used to trade. Uganda, Kenya, if you look at the olden days, we used to trade. What has happened? You find that most of us are trading with external partners, with our colonial masters, traditionally, with the Far East, China and India. But when it comes to trading with each other, we are putting barriers at the borders. We are actually stopping the free flow of trade of goods. And so what needs to happen is that we have put in place frameworks. We have the East African Community, the Customs Management Act. We have now, very excitingly, we have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And these are great frameworks for Africa to trade. Under these frameworks, trade liberalization has happened. Tariffs have been reduced, which means if I'm importing goods from Uganda, I don't have to pay taxes if the goods are manufactured in Uganda. Unfortunately, there's what we call non-tariff barriers. So at the borders, there are either officials who are not willing to let the goods pass through easily. They will find excuses. Maybe the standards are one of the issues. Maybe there are issues of corruption. So there are various issues, bureaucratic processes to export. I'm told to get a permit here for coffee, it may take up to 64 steps. You have to go to different institutions. They are not connected. You'll have to go to trade. You'll have to go to agriculture. You'll have to go to the export authority. And so the processes deter trade. So what we must do is, even as we liberalize trade by removing the tariffs, we must remove these barriers, the non-tariff barriers.
Yes.
Those blockages that hinder us from trading, because we are trading people.
Yes, definitely.
We are communities that trade with each other. If you go to the borders, it's bustling communities.
Definitely, and I remember even, going through our history classes, the way movement of people from North Africa,
from
exchanging goods from the coast, a lot of movement, which, the barriers now we have countries. It's quite a different scenario, but I want to discuss something quite interesting. You've mentioned, the free continental free trade area, the continental free trade area, of which we saw, the biggest market in Africa, Nigeria, taking, a back step to it, being very careful. I know right now they're in, and some of their concerns were in terms of, we are different. We have different countries with different capabilities. Is there anything that is being done to bring everything on a level playground so that nobody has to feel like these ones are gaining more and these ones are losing more?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question and very pertinent, because we want to trade, but we know that with all these trading processes, it's always not fair or equal. And if it's not equal, it's not sustainable. Because if one party is gaining to the expense of the other party, then we will find that soon there will be conflicts. And that's when you get the barriers. People say, oh, we won't let your sugar come in, or we won't let your milk come in. So Nigeria, as the biggest economy, is worried that people are actually going to flock and try to either dump goods in their country or try to take over the economy in whatever way. But this fear is unfounded if you put in place measures to ensure that trade is equitable and that it's sustainable. And these measures including all the people who are benefiting or likely to lose from trade. Women, for instance. Women are traditionally the traders. They're the ones who are carrying the bags on their backs. They're the ones crossing the borders to trade. But often they are disproportionately affected because they are seen as informal. They are not captured in the statistics. And most of our interventions target the formal sector.
Yes, definitely. And that the women's sector, we're going to be touching on it later on in details. Let's speak about the FDIs, foreign direct investments in Africa. Looking at the graph, it spiked around 2010, come in 2012, then from 2016 to 2018, it's been reducing, and it's quite a concern. Why are people not targeting Africa? Because Africa is presented as the future
Yeah.
of the world.
Yeah.
Why do we have reduction in foreign direct investments?
Yeah, thank you. This is a perplexing one because we know that Africa, everyone has called it the continent of promise, the continent of hope. Africa is rising, but why no FDI? If you look at our figures and those of Asia, we are growing at a much lesser rate than Asia or other regions, or even maybe Latin America. So how can we attract FDI? If you were an investor and you wanted to put money in Africa, you would want a stable environment. You'd want to be assured that the laws are in place to protect you. You want to be assured that there's no arbitrary taking or nationalization of your assets as is happening.
Yes.
You want to be assured that you can trade, that you can actually take back your profits.
Yes.
So all these have to be in place. But even as they're in place, I think there are other smaller barriers like corruption, getting a permit, the processes, how do you register a business? Some of these things deter, but I want to assure investors that Africa is ready.
Yes.
Many of our countries in the region have put in place reforms. Trademark, for instance, is supporting ICT trade reforms that enable transparency
Yes.
and remove the human intervention.
Yes.
So you can actually register your business online. You can actually access information around what goods to trade online. So the opportunities are there for investments, but I think our governments need to do more to actually show that this is the place to invest.
Yes, definitely. And I'm really happy you've outlined quite in details within that limited time, but we really appreciate your time, Alan. Simwe, Chief Technical Officer, Trademark East Africa. Later on, we shall discuss this with our next guest in details, but right now our time is up.
Thank
Yes,
you.
so matters Africa. That's where we stand. How can we boost trade, reduce non-tariff barriers, make sure that there's free movement from one country to the other? That particular normal business today takes a short break. When we come back, we have BBC's Money Daily, and later on, dig deeper into matters women in Africa and how they can transform this continent into an area